Protecting homes and businesses from the whims of nature, you need more than just quality materials. You require RiverLand Roofing. Licensed, insured, and certified, RiverLand Roofing offers not only the assurance of excellence, but a tailored approach to your unique structural needs and budget. To learn more about what RiverLand Roofing can do for you and the community, call them at 662-644-4297 or visit riverlandroofing.com.
You're locked into Talk of Champions, an Ole Miss podcast powered by RiverLand Roofing and featuring Ben Garrett and Billy Embody of Rebel Grove. Hello again, friends, and welcome inside, at least for me, Ben Garrett of Rebel Grove, at Spirit Ben on Twitter, the RiverLand Roofing Studios, New Albany branch. RiverLand Roofing for all your roofing needs, 662-644-4297. Visit them online at riverlandroofing.com. Few, if any, are doing more for Ole Miss in the NIL name, image, and likeness space than RiverLand Roofing. So our thanks to them who power everything we do here at Talk of Champions. And joining me is Michael Katz from the Daily Journal. He covers Ole Miss for the Daily Journal. Mike, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm good. So how have you been, or how has camp been, in your opinion, for Ole Miss this fall camp? They're in their third full week. We don't get to get back out there until tomorrow, Thursday. We're recording this on Wednesday. What's kind of been your main takeaways as you've been out there every single day checking out Ole Miss football as it prepares for the season 18 days away?
Yeah, crazy. It's coming up like that.
Crazy.
I think there's a few things I thought I knew coming in, and I think we're only hammered home that wide receiver room is as good as we thought it was going to be. You just look at the number of bodies, the type of bodies, the different things they can do, how deep they are. I think that on paper, that room looked like it was going to be really good, and just seeing it in action and in full speed-ish has been really, really impressive. I think listen, I know you don't just replace guys like Trey Harris and Jordan Watkins and Juice Wells and all those sorts of guys, but if any team is in a position to not have a drop off and maybe be even deeper, it's this group. And I think seeing it in person has been really, really impressive. I think the other thing too, and Lane talked about it a couple days ago, was that defensive line. Again, you lost so many good pieces. They still look really, really good, and they're really, really deep. And Lane talked about how good that first group is. And listen, is it fair to expect this group to, be number 2 in rush defense and all those sack numbers and all that stuff? Probably not yet. But I think this group's in a really good place. And again, seeing it in person and seeing how well, how they look. Again, body-wise, it looks like a big-time SEC defensive line again, like it did last year. Again, we don't get to see a ton of the scrimmaging stuff, but from what it sounds like, they were really impressive over the weekend. So I think those are two of the really big takeaways, and those are two rooms that lost so much. I think that the fact that they seem to have built it back up and got players in the right places, I think is really encouraging.
What do you have to see more out of, both on offense and on defense, from what you've seen so far?
I need to figure out what that offensive line is. I really do. I know they've had some injuries, and again, we don't get to see a ton of live scrimmage work. There's a little bit here and there, but we see what we're supposed to see. But I think that as when the defensive line plays really well, that usually means that maybe the offensive line wasn't at its best, and it does sound like there were some issues, according to Lane, a little bit up and down. Listen, as good as that offense was last year, number 3 in the nation in scoring, and I think number 1 in total offense. Their offensive line had its moments where it really struggled, and we know they struggled to run the ball. That's no mystery from last year. We know that pass protection was occasionally a problem. When you have a new quarterback and you've got all these new pieces, I think you really need that offensive line to be strong. And I don't know where it's at yet. I know the pieces individually look like they can be really good when you put them all together. But I just don't know what it is yet. And let's be honest, if they run the ball like they did last year, it's going to be tough sledding. Again, with a new quarterback, we all think Austin's going to be really good, but you can't expect him to do the things that Jackson did as a third-year starter immediately. Jackson masked a lot of things that might have been wrong with the offense. You can't depend on Austin to be doing that right now. So I think that offensive line, I think it can be good, but I just need to see it. I need to see it. Maybe it's against another defense because the defensive line, if the defensive line is really good, it's going to make offensive lines everywhere look bad. So, maybe it's seeing it in action against somebody else. I think on defense, we've talked about it a trillion times, but the secondary, I think it's in a better place than maybe I thought coming in. Again, just because do they have a Trey Amos superstar shutdown corner? I mean, they might, but it's we don't know it. We don't know who that's going to be quite yet. But again, a lot of bodies they can rotate in. I think they're a little bit deeper than I thought. But I don't know what that group is quite yet. The defensive line, you feel good about it. I think the linebacker group probably feel a little bit better about too, than maybe coming in when you've seen guys like Tush Chambers step up, and we know what Daughtery is, and then guys like that. Really the question mark I think is that defensive backfield. So again, it could be good, but I just don't think we know yet.
Anything surprised you so far, be it a players stepping up on either side of the ball, maybe some contributors emerging that we weren't necessarily expecting for August 30th when Ole Miss kicks off against Georgia State, position groups? What's really surprised you out there, if anything?
I think Tush Chambers has been one of the surprising ones. We talked a lot about the linebackers they brought in, and really Yates who had a trillion tackles last year, Marshall, and Jones from Grambling, who's a conference player of the year, and Tush Chambers, who I think was second team all conference coming out. He's looked really good. One, he's really impressive to talk to. He's a really well-spoken guy, and I think that that always for me, I'm always looking at, like, if they lose a tough game, who's going to come out and talk to us, right? I've already identified him as a guy who maybe is one of those guys, right?
Yeah.
But he's been getting a lot of time, and part of that's due to injuries, I imagine. But I think he's been a nice surprise. Maybe not a name that I expected to be seeing getting as much action in there as I thought.
As far as newcomers, freshmen, you can even factor in some transfers here, but look, they're going to be so transfer heavy on both sides that, I mean, that's just an every year occurrence for Ole Miss football these days. So I guess the real surprise would be if some freshmen stepped up, because we're not used to seeing that. Caden Lee was kind of a unicorn when he got involved that early. But I think there are some freshmen here that could really contribute. Who of the freshmen do you think, both maybe because of need, their talent, whatever it might be, who do you think's got a real chance to contribute come August 30th?
I know that again, that wide receiver room is really deep, and it's probably going to be a little bit tough to make a name in there. But the names that have really been sticking out to me are Dylan Alfred and Winston Watkins. They're guys that I've seen a lot of, and I think both were early enrollees, right? I think both of them were.
Yeah.
That is, I think, so big right now in college football to get in there early and get that spring in, because then when you get there in the fall, you are not behind. I know that Caleb Cunningham was the huge name, and I think he's going to be a really, really good player, but he's a little bit behind those guys in terms of the playbook, and you see those guys running a little bit higher up on the higher up on the reps, and they've been looking really impressive. It seems like they've got a good rapport with Austin. Again, it's a really deep receiver room, and I think going in, those guys weren't the freshman receivers we thought were gonna maybe contribute right away, but I think those guys have a chance to do some nice things.
You make a really good point, man. Enrolling early used to be something that was reserved for the guys that were just, ready to get going. It was very unique circumstances. It was a big deal. It was a big move. It was a big decision to enroll early, to leave high school, not do the senior prom, all that kind of stuff, just so you could get to campus, and get your career started and get off on a really good foot. And yet now, if you don't do it, right? If you don't if you don't show up early, you are behind. Everything's been kind of expedited. I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. But everybody's career is a different timeline than it used to be, and that includes for high schoolers. Man, it's kind of critical now to get there in the mid-year because you're right, Caleb Cunningham. That no one denies the talent, but as far as being behind Winston Watkins, who went through a full month and all of the summer, did the throwing sessions with Austin and stuff like that, it does set you back. So that's a really good point, because it's not just him either on the defensive side. Guys that maybe you were hoping to get here a little earlier so they could get in and get involved and mix in, especially in that secondary. They're having to take their time, and maybe for Ole Miss's timeline, that's a little untenable compared to what they prefer it to be, which is having the full disposal of their arsenal at their disposal. So that's a really good point, and people don't need to discount that, man. I think the guys that got here early, like a Winnie Watkins, he's going to play, and it might just be special teams. But I saw LaDarian Clardy running number 2 behind Sage Ryan at strong safety. Devin Harper looks the part. Connor Howell's also a freshman offensive lineman like Devin Harper. Physically, he's got it. But I think you could see, unlike previous years, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, I think you could see more of a freshman presence with this team than you have maybe certainly within the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think that's partly the way they've built this team. Obviously you've got all of the portal guys, but I think they've really, as much as we talk about the portal with Ole Miss, the emphasis, there has been a huge emphasis on traditional recruiting in these past couple classes. So, and let's be honest, you need those guys to play, because if they don't, it's going to happen. They're not going to be with you the next year. So, there's some strategy there too. And again, if you get them in there early, you're not just throwing them out there because you have to. You're throwing them out there because they're going to help your team.
Well, some quick hitter stuff from your view of Ole Miss fall camp on the sidelines, the viewing periods that we do get. Number one, if you had to predict after what you've seen for 3 weeks, who will lead the Ole Miss backfield at running back, who do you think it'll be?
I think the easy answer would be Logan Diggs, but I don't know if I believe it. Because it sounds, I think Logan Diggs is a really good player. I think you know what you're getting with Logan Diggs, right? But when Lane used the term electric for Kewan Lacey, that kind of struck me, because he doesn't throw words like that around, right?
That's right.
That strikes me as a special talent that seems like he could be a game breaker. So I think Lacey's got a chance to be really, really good.
Caden Lee's probably he's the odds-on favorite to lead Ole Miss in receiving yards, right? Last year was only number 2 behind Trey Harris, and now is the only returner in that room. But you added Dejon Stribling, a number 1 from Oklahoma State. You added Harrison Wallace, a number 1 at Penn State. If Caden Lee is the one that we think is going to lead Ole Miss in receiving yards, who do you think leads Ole Miss in receiving touchdowns?
Ooh, I like that one. I think it's Stribling, just because of, again, I look at the body types and the different things they have in the room and who they remind me of. Like Stribling sort of reminds me of a Trey Harris kind of body, right? Just in terms of a little bit taller, a guy who's going to pluck the ball out of the air. We know that Trey, I think he ended up with 8 touchdowns last year, and that was in 6 full games.
That's nuts, man.
You project that over a healthy season, it's pretty insane. Stribling again has been a touchdown guy before. I think he and Austin are going to have a really good red zone relationship.
Does the interceptions leader come from the secondary or someone else?
Ooh.
Because I'm thinking of Taj Chambers in an athletic 235. He's added 20 pounds at linebacker. Centurion is now dropping into coverage a lot. I don't see the same star power yet in the secondary that we certainly saw last year. And it's not just Trey Amos being an All-American. Trey Washington was a 4-year starter. And I can't remember who exactly it was that was getting Kapina Kushkin, the transfer from Washington State, getting comparisons from Lane Kiffin to Trey Washington, which I think, like you said, with in regards to calling Kewan Lacey electric, if you've been around Lane for any extended time, when he drops a compliment like that, he means it, man. You don't take that lightly. So I think Kapina Kushkin is going to be a great player for Ole Miss, but Trey wasn't a big interceptions guy. He's an inbox safety a lot of the time. He did a lot of leading tackling for Ole Miss and stuff like that. So I could see it coming from somewhere else, especially if you don't have that dominant corner yet, which I don't think they have, even though Antonio Kite's been the one constant there. Dante Core, true freshman's mixing in, competing with Ricky Fletcher and Chris Graves on the field side. The boundary's been Antonio Kite. If I had to guess, and I'll kind of put it ahead, if I had to guess, I still would predict it would be a cornerback emerging, maybe a Ricky Fletcher because of his length and what they need him to be. But I think you could make a case for other positions this year, at least going into the year.
You know, when Lane said that Perkins had a pick six in the scrimmage, it kind of got the wheels turning in my head a little bit.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, they're going to use him in a lot of different ways. He's going to have to do a lot for them. There's just so much athleticism with him too. I could see him getting 3 or 4, and maybe that is the team lead. I don't know what it looks like this year, but I could be talked into Centurion Perkins leading the team in interceptions.
As far as the sack leader, last year, Centurion tied with Princely Uman-Mielen, 10.5 sacks apiece. That's a monster number. I'm not asking who's going to do it with him, if he's going to replicate that. But I'm curious, do you think Ole Miss – it was such an historic year. You know, I know that everybody I've talked to, I had one coach say, look, man, we take our front 8 rotation, or at least our rotation of 8 defensive linemen, and put them up against anybody else in the country. That's a high praise. But when you look at the numbers and you look at the lack of experience, right, you say to yourself, even with guys like transfers, Deshaun Walmack and Prince Willie Uman-Mielen, they didn't have the same kind of resume as Princely did, for example, coming over from Florida. So for me, it's less about who, jumps up there with Centurion if Ole Miss can get close to that production. So I guess the question is not if they're going to be record-setting, because that's way too high of an expectations. They did that in sacks and tackles for loss last year, but can they do a third of that, 2/3 of that, and is that enough?
Yeah, again, when you have 2 guys with 10.5 last year, and Walter, I think, had 6.5, whatever it was. I mean, it was crazy.
Defensive tackle, man, at 3 tech. I mean, it's nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it was nuts. I think, Perkins, I think he's going to be doing a lot this year. I don't know if his value is necessarily just going to be in sacks this year, right? Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be pressures. It's going to be things he does in coverage, or his run. There's going to be a lot of different things that he's doing. Not saying that he's not going to get 10 again, but outside of that, I feel like you're going to get a lot of guys who have decent sack numbers, right? Like a lot of guys who have like 3 or 4. And I think that's going to add up. Is it going to add up to 52, whatever it was last year? I don't know. That's a lot of guys with 4 sacks.
Right.
But
DJ Holmes better have him a year, Yeah,
right. But I think that, again, when you talk about the depth, I think they have a lot of guys who are going to be able to produce at a good level. Maybe not at the Princely Uman-Mielen level or the Centurion Perkins level. But I think you got a lot of guys who can do a lot of different things. I don't think it's crazy to think that they could get 2/3-ish of that sack number. I think that's pretty fair. Again, I know that sack numbers can be a little bit finicky because you don't always get to the quarterback, and sometimes you get there and the ball comes out right at the last second. But I think that this group has a chance to pressure. Maybe not quite at the level that last year's did, but I think it can be pretty darn good.
Yeah. Now, I've waited this long to ask about Austin, but I think we got to kind of touch on it. Lane said on Monday, made some critical errors in that scrimmage. None of us were there, but we all talked to people. We know what happened. Multiple pick sixes. And, I mean, it just wasn't a good day for him. Last week, and I think there were some accuracy issues with them all throughout the week. No one's doubting what Austin Simmons can be, but it just, I think, is a good example of there are gonna be some ups and downs that you weren't quite used to as you got the final year and a half, 2 years of Jackson Dart, who was really operating at his absolute best. So it's less about, he's gonna make his mistakes, right? And you got to live with those mistakes. But where are you on Austin, and who is Ole Miss's backup quarterback? And do you think that backup quarterback will factor in maybe more than we expected?
I think it can be easy to, you hear about the critical errors and those sorts of things. And it can be easy to be like, ooh, like maybe he isn't what we thought he was. But I think too, one, it's a scrimmage. I think guys are going to maybe make throws that they wouldn't normally make in a real actual game.
And he's got a lot of pressure in his face from that defensive line.
Yeah.
That offense. I mean, I'm giving him I'm like, let's pop the brakes, pump the brakes a little bit on all that.
Maybe the defense is actually pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think other than that, it's just really like, and again, as good as we think Austin is going to be, I think it's unfair to expect him to do the things that Jackson did last year. I mean, it's going to be really hard for a redshirt sophomore to come in and act like a third-year starter, a first-team All-SEC first-round draft pick. That's a lot. Jackson knew that offense inside and out. Austin, I think, is going to get there, but he's a kid. He's young. He's inexperienced. He's never started a game. I think you're going to have those moments. I don't think it's worrisome. I think it's just going to be different for Ole Miss fans because we saw like the highest possible level of quarterback play last year, and it's not probably going to look like that right away. It might eventually, and it probably will eventually. But, to expect that on August 13th, probably not fair, right?
Right.
I think backup-wise, I mean, it's been looking like Chambliss, just if we're looking at, like, the reps and stuff. I think that he's going to have a role in the running game, if I had to guess, just because you probably want to limit hits on Austin. I know Lane has said that, he doesn't want to give too much away, but that he would imagine Austin runs a little bit less, and he probably is not going to have him lower his shoulder, the way Jackson did.
And still does if you watched what he did in his opener with the
incredible, absolute refusal to slide. I love it.
I love it.
But I think there's ways that you can factor him in. Listen, is he going to be able to do some of the things throwing that Austin can? Probably not. They have very different arms. Austin has an absolutely elite arm. We know that. Chambliss is a really experienced guy. He's a different type of quarterback, though. But I do think that there's probably going to be situations where we're going to see him in, and maybe it's obvious rundowns, and maybe they switch it up and let him throw here and there. But it looks like Chambliss, though AJ Maddox has looked really good. That's an impressive arm too.
I really have been impressed with AJ. I think he's responded to the added competition in the room too. I think he feels like he's being pushed, and he's doing a good job of responding to that. A couple of things that mean nothing really for football, but I'm going to say Trinidad Chambliss is just an elite quarterback name.
True.
We haven't talked enough about this. Trinidad Chambliss. He's not going to knock you over with his arm strength, but you're right, man. As far as his running ability, he's dynamic, and that name is absolutely elite. Real quick before I let you go, some buy or sell. Buy or sell that Deuce Alexander is probably the top candidate as far as who's going to emerge as the next Jordan Watkins, a guy that could have blow-up potential in games, but the reliability, the role he plays, how important he is, a true glue guy. I think Deuce is that guy. Are you buying or selling that? It's a tough one because you do have candidates, friend.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's just such a deep room. I don't know exactly who's gonna be it. I could see it though. I've been really impressed with him, and it sounds, again, Lane has said he's had a great camp, and again, Lane doesn't throw around those sorts of things super often. So I'm interested in buying. Let's say that.
Okay, good. Buy or sell. Caleb Odom has more touchdown catches at tight end than Daquan Wright.
I'm still probably going to sell that.
Me too, but I have been seeing them use him a lot at goal line.
Yes. No, again, and maybe that is what ends up happening. But as of right now, I'm going to say I think Daquan Wright is just he's a really good player. I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. And obviously, Odom is a matchup nightmare potentially. But as of right now, I'm going to sell that one.
Buy or sell someone other than TJ Daugherty would lead Ole Miss in tackles.
Ooh.
I'm just coming up with these off the top of my dome, by the way. I didn't prepare this at all.
I think it's easy to sell that one.
It is.
But I'm going to buy it, and I'm not sure who it's going to be, but I just feel like somebody else is going to have a couple more.
Okay. He finished second last year to Chris Paul. He's a Butkus watch list member. He's the obvious candidate to lead Ole Miss in tackles. But I'm kind of with you, man. I could see it coming from the secondary because of how the defense kind of falls. I could see like a Kapina Gushkin having a Trey Washington like 80 tackle season and that being enough. Like you could see that because of how he'll play inside, especially if they're dropping Santarin into coverage like they have been doing. He got a pick 6 in the scrimmage on Saturday. He's Michael Katz. He covers Ole Miss for the Daily Journal. I actually got one right behind me, Katz. You don't even see this. Parrish Alford wrote this story right behind me. From what year is this? 2001.
Wow. They refer to those as the ancient texts.
Yes, this is some ancient text from your Daily Journal, sir. Written by our boy Parrish Alford. Parrish, hope you're doing well. But Michael Katz now covers Ole Miss for the Daily Journal. Go check out his stuff both on Twitter, but obviously at the Daily Journal, the newspaper, the online edition as well. He's great at what he does, man, and he's been so good to us and friends to us here at Talk of Champions. Powered as always by RiverLand Roofing. 662-644-4297 for all your roofing needs. RiverlandRoofing.com. They power everything we do here at Talk of Champions, and we're so thankful. Sign up today at Rebel Grove on 3 for just $1 to get full comprehensive coverage of Ole Miss fall camp, and we'll have Katz back on again. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. We'll do it again.
Appreciate you, man.